Hello Orchid friends, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. If this is your first time watching my video, my channel is all about orchids. From what orchids I have, how I grow them, my thoughts on certain orchid topics, to what orchids in my collection are blooming, etc. So if you want to follow along my orchid hobby adventure, please consider subscribing to my channel and turn on the notification. Today in this video, we're going to look at one of my species orchid, and this one is called stuartiana. I've had this one for about 2 years, maybe a little bit over 2 years, and this is the second time that it has bloomed for me. It bloomed last year with a similar flower count, and this year I think it's doing even better for a few reasons, and here's the story of this orchid. This year, this orchid is slightly more established than last year, obviously, because last year I've had this orchid since it was a seedling, and then after a while, it finally became mature, so last year it produced its first ever flower spike and bloomed. This year, I observed even more rigor out of this orchid in terms of root growth and leaf growth. And obviously it bloomed, but I also feel that the flowers this year are bigger than last year, even though the flower counts are the same. I think it was last year, I think I also had maybe 5 or 6 blooms. But overall, I really find this orchid fascinating for 2 main reasons. One is the way that the flower is shaped and how the bottom sepals and the lip would have that dark brown spots. The shape of the lip is rather similar to the lip of Schilleriana. However, the color combination, the color palette is just very different. And on the back of the flower, last year the green went away. But this year, somehow the green stayed for quite some time, and even when this orchid became in full bloom, which you'll see later in the video, from the back of the flower, you could still very well see the green tinge, the green color, which I find very interesting. Green is one of my favorite colors, so whenever I can see a little bit of green shade flowers, that gets me excited. This orchid doesn't have any fragrance to me. Some people say it's fragrant, but my experience with this year's blooming and last year's blooming, it doesn't really smell anything, if at all. You know, both in the morning, midday, or afternoon, I don't smell anything. Another reason I find this orchid very fascinating is its foliage. As many of you know, most orchids have just green leaves, but this one has modeling patterns or marks on the leaves, and I find that very, very interesting. So even when this orchid is not in bloom, the leaves are something very pleasant to look at as well. I think there are a few orchids in addition to stuartiana, Schilleriana, that would have modeling on their leaves. I think another one is their cross, so it's called Philadelphia. And then I think Lindii, it's a species orchid, also has modeling on their leaves. And then another type of leaf variation is the variegation. Variegated leaves, orchid with variegated leaves, those are pretty as well, but they're not always easy to come by, because you do have to check with specialty nurseries, because I've never seen any orchids with variegated leaves being sold at grocery store. I did purchase, well, actually, I take that back. I got my Sogo Vivian with variegated leaves from Trader Joe's, and the other one is from a Home Depot in Los Angeles when I was on vacation. So it is possible, but it's not that usual. Okay, so here is the side-by-side comparison of stuartiana and Phalaenopsis Philadelphia. So the flower on the left is a cross between stuartiana, which is on the right, and schilleriana. So essentially, if you think of schilleriana and stuartiana being the parent, the flower on the left, the Philadelphia cross, is the child. And you can see at the bottom sepals, their bottom sepals all have very similar resemblance, right? That dark brown spots throughout the bottom sepals and the lip area. And then for Philadelphia, the top portion of the flower, the two sepal, the petals and the top sepal, then it kind of looks more like schilleriana with the color, the pinkish purple color, and with dots. I really like Philadelphia because I really enjoy looking at the small tiny dots within the petals and the top sepals. So back to stuartiana a little bit. Stuartiana currently, this orchid is currently grown in the semi-hydroponic method. And what that means is that you would use inorganic media, put it inside of a container, and this container will have two drainage holes on the side of the cup. And depending on your preference and your environment and how big your container is, the level of the two holes may be lower or higher. You just have to play around with the ratio. But the idea is that the area below the two holes will be the reservoir where the water is, and then through the wicking effect, then the portion above the two holes will be able to have constant moisture but still have enough aeration within the media to allow the root to have gas exchange and to grow. And a lot of my semi-hydro success examples, which you'll probably see later in the year as I continue to make video updates on them, you'll see that a lot of the roots are actually growing into the reservoir. And when that happens, for me, that goes into the autopilot mode for that orchid. And all I need to do is add water, and sometimes this water contains fertilizer. And once a month, I would use just pure water to flush, to soak it very well and then drain it. Otherwise, if I'm lazy, I only simply add water to the level of the drainage hole until there is a little bit of water outflowing, then I stopped. And that would basically be good for another 7 days or so in summertime, and then it would last up to 2 weeks, maybe even a little bit over 2 weeks in the winter time when the temperature is lower and when water evaporation and the orchid's need for more water is just on the lower side. And in terms of fertilizer, I do only use quarter strength fertilizer, so 25% of the recommended dosage or strength on the label, because I do believe fertilizing orchids weekly, so you use a very small amount but then on a higher frequency. And because the water with only 25% fertilizer is rather diluted already, it's not in high concentration, and so you don't really need to worry about orchid roots soaking in this kind of solution for too long and would have any kind of root burn issue because it's already only 25%. This is one of the questions from my Chinese subscribers. They were asking, for orchids soaking in a 25% fertilizer solution, do they need to use clear water to, just pure water to rinse out the roots again? For me, I don't do it, but if you are really trying to keep your roots looking really pretty, you could, but personally, I don't do that, and it seems to be just fine with my orchids. This is all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. And if you would like to get more orchid related videos from my channel, please subscribe and turn on the notification. I want to wish you happy growing, and I will talk to you in my next video. Ciao!